Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena and Happy New Year's. And it is 2025 for our first tier list. Now, the thing to note right off of the bat, guys, is we do not know exactly what the impact is going to be of the rework of Ainz and Albedo. So we don't know exactly where they're going to fall in the tier list because, of course, January 1st is going to be the release of both of these heroes with the rework as well as Shell tier. So we don't know exactly, again, where they're going to fall in the tier list. It is way too new, but I feel like we are going to see a really resurgent of these Overlord heroes, looking at Albedo, looking at Ainz. When it comes to the overall combat rating, they did buff it quite a bit. Even the skills and abilities, they did offer them quite a bit of a buff as well, which is really cool to see because if you were here for the original release of these Overlord heroes, they were super legit, literally meta best in slot. Both of them run together. It worked incredibly well, and I can't wait to see exactly what does come back with these. So, all right, guys, so let's hop over. Let's check out this tier list. We will go ahead and break this down. All right, guys, so here it is, January 2025 for our tier list. Now, staying in our top left, just like it is normally, it hasn't really changed very much when it comes to the top tier heroes in AFK Arena. We still have Liberta, who is very legit, still holding strong. Utility-wise, one of the absolute best heroes within AFK Arena, followed by the Awakened version of Athalia, still the primary one to build when you look at the Awakened heroes. Does require a little bit of build because she is a damage dealer, but overall does incredibly well. And to my surprise, actually, Liberta hasn't really fallen out too far as the tier list. Same with Lucilla. We have seen them holding together strong. Now, in a lot of combinations, a lot of formations, they are being run together in the entirety. Now, Lan, this is the first Highborn Draconic hero that we're really seeing as a support hero having utility in every single game mode. Now, when we talk about the game modes, you're looking at campaign, you're looking at towers, you're looking at, or excuse me, the Temple Rift, because Lan's not in the towers, with Draconic towers. But overall, the treasure scramble, you're looking at the Temple Rift. Like I said, you're looking at the Cursed Realm, the Nightmare Corridor. They're being used in so many different game modes, which is the same with Demia, especially with that Mahira artifact. Incredibly strong, not only in some formations, being the best in slot damage dealer, but also a really solid buffer for teams, which is the same with Aurelia. Now, one thing to note with this hero specifically, Aurelia does need the plus 40 signature item to really shine as a hero, to really get those big, massive buffs coming. Aurelia does need to be built. Lavatoon, still another one, formation-wise, can be popped in with any hero in formation, will do incredibly well. And then Leica still holding on to the last position in this SSS tier. And the big reason for that is it's unique how she brings heroes into formations, how she actually provides that shielding aspect or the damage mitigation for those first heroes. It really does make a big difference. Now, looking at the second tier, we see Rimuru. That is making a really big presence in this top tier. And of course, with the patch that is coming, you're going to have access to Rimuru and you're going to have access to Shuna, which is pretty cool. So we're going to have access to both of those. Now, we still see Amelia in here, and then we see Randy. So Randall has really made in being staple in formations, not only being best in slot as the highest damage dealer in formations, but also as a backup, as a buffer. Incredibly, incredibly strong, unique build hero, which is the same for Jerome. I know we just got the skin on him. Super excited for that one. But overall, there are heroes like him that buff up the light bearers exceptionally well. When you think of the Awakened version of Belinda, still doing an incredible amount of damage, still being best in slot in a lot of different formations. And even outside of the light bearer faction, he can still offer a ton of different buffs, which is the same with Shuna. Shuna, we see, again, a lot of buffs that are going around, and we're starting to see a lot more of the higher primary 4 faction heroes, like looking at Jerome, looking at Ivan, looking at Randy, that are falling in this top tier, including, again, Ivan is in here, Palmer is in here, some very strong heroes that do have, again, a lot of utility. When you start looking at 5, 6, 7 teams within formations, you have to have these heroes. They are the support heroes. They are the key heroes to allow the heroes within AFK Arena to maximize the damage. Now we have Aethys in here, again, super strong tank, a lot of crowd control. Even Gavison here still does a lot of the support aspect. So thinking of Rimuru, thinking of Gavis, they provide a lot more of the support mitigation aspect that we see in formations, not doing an incredible amount of damage, but the utility is still there. Now, Nox does fall into the SS tier. We're seeing, again, this hero having a considerable amount of utility, run in a couple different formations, very effective within the Treasure Scramble itself, and also being run with a Slumbering Seal to allow, because Nox, if you fought him, Nox is incredibly difficult to kill. If you have the Slumbering Seal in there, you can get a couple more ults working incredibly well. Now, we still do have Rem in here. Rem does a lot of damage, still does have the survivability issues. That's where Alna comes in. And we see Alna actually run with a lot of different heroes, depending on exactly who you have built. Then we look at Naruko, Naruko. I'm still doing, again, Tiny Tank. I always forget the name because I refer to her as Tiny Tank. But when you think of buffing, when you think of shielding, when you think of everything that a hero needs to bring, as a tank, absolutely brings it. Now, we're starting to see a little bit more utility out of the Awakened version of Thorin. Doing a lot of damage ever since he got a buff. Still, PvP-wise, absolutely a monster in there. And starting to see, again, him being used in some other formations. Awakened version of Shamira, still a ton of utility in there. Misha, another one. Run with Wilders, run with a bunch of different heroes, including Iran. Still a lot of utility, a lot of buffs that are given out there. Awakened version of Lucius, still one of the best in slot Lightbearers. Does an incredible amount of damage. Now, the thing to note with him is he requires a very, very big, solid build to be effective within game modes. We are talking, and I believe, plus 40 signature item, 18 furniture, and like a 72 engraving to really maximize what Lucius needs to do. If you don't have him built up very high, you'll see works very dismal at best without being built. Now, Eugene, we're still seeing, again, considerable amount of utility out of this hero in a lot of different game modes, even seeing him in the Cursed Realm of the Nightmare Corridor in some of the iterations. Now, here we have the Awakened version of Iran. This is another one, and a lot of people kind of go back and forth between Lucius, between Iran, between a couple other heroes, even Zora, and where the utility is going to fall, how well these heroes work. But ultimately, if you don't have Iran, you can actually replace him with a couple other ones. Even thinking of our Highborn Draconic heroes, here is Skyland. Skyland is actually replaced by Iran in a lot of formations because, of course, Iran is a cheaper version to build, does provide a considerable amount of crowd control. And with these heroes, collections make a really big difference to maximize the damage or the crowd control that they're providing within game modes. And then when we think of another Highborn Draconic hero, which is Gwen, the cost for these heroes is through the roof. Still, there hasn't been any adjustments. Haven't seen any changes to acquiring these heroes, which makes it incredibly difficult. Even on my account, I do not have one copy of Skyland. I'm not going to have one because I'm still, I believe, 6 copies short of LAN as it sits right now. Incredibly, incredibly disappointing that they don't make these a little bit cheaper. Now, then we look at Trishia. This is a hero, again, still seeing utility with the original version of Baden. Run in a couple formations, still is working in a few different formations. And then we have Zora. So overall, we're starting to see her presence showing up in PvP. Nightmare Corridor, Cursed Realm, that is yet to be determined. But overall, again, still starting to see a little bit of utility with this hero. Still super, super early overall to see exactly where she's going to fall. But as of right now, they put her in the SS tier. Looking at this S tier, going down, and you'll see some of the heroes that used to be the top tier, including the Awakened version of Baden and the Awakened version of Solus, have sadly, at this point, been replaced in a majority of these formations. Now, here we do also have a few, like the Chad right here, buffing damage-wise. If you don't have a lot of the higher tier heroes built, he still does work incredibly well. Adrian and Elise following the exact same, does require a higher signature item, of course, but can really amplify the damage that you're doing in there. Hildwyn, another mage that provides a lot of the support aspect. Not seeing a ton of damage out of the hero, but when it comes to support, when it comes to survivability, does do incredibly well with the shielding aspect. Now, the Awakened version of Sophia, again, starting to come a little bit down the tier list. Not seeing as much utility as we continue to get these really, really big support heroes like Rendell out of there. And then, of course, we talked about Baden, we talked about Solus. Nyla, another one that used to be best in slot damage dealer, seems like coming down the tier list a little bit. We built her out. She was best in slot within, I believe, Cursed Realm and Nightmare Corridor, but as of now, not a ton of utility, maybe in 1 or 2 iterations. Tamara is still doing well, has the enthusiasm buff, also does provide a lot of crowd control. Kelthin's one that we're seeing, again, a little bit of a resurgence within the Nightmare Corridor with the damage that he is doing, and of course the crowd control. But overall, tower absolutely required for the Hypo Tower. Then we have the disappointment, unfortunately, of the Awakened version of Antandra. She, unfortunately, I don't even think made it into the SS tier. She does have some issues with survivability. Damage isn't too high, and I believe right now she's used in one iteration of the Nightmare Corridor, and that is it. Don't know if it's going to change in the future. Villanelle, again, was very top tier, very short-lived, however. The energy disintegration we've seen with the Awakened version of Shmira and Lady Simona, a few other heroes worked well synergy-wise and then were quickly replaced. Rosaline will boost ultimate abilities for anybody. Still run with the Awakened version of Belinda, still run with a couple different heroes, doing incredibly well, holding a slot in the S tier. Same with Alna. When we think of the Challenger Store, Alna is still the priority because she can do kind of the cheat death to all these other heroes. When you look at Skylin, when you look at the Awakened version of Iran, when you think of the Awakened version of Belinda, all of them can be buffed and are buffed by Alna. And I feel like the utility of this hero, again, just because of the 9 of 9 furniture, is not really going to change. Now, Rain is unique because she provides the damage boost. It is not just an attack boost, it is the actual straight damage boost. As the heroes are getting stronger, Rain still does work very well. Lady Simona, the energy disintegration, PvP-wise, still does work. Treasure Scramble, of course, definitely one in there. My boy Rowan, I want to see an Awakened version of Rowan, but that's my preference. Then we have Mortis as a buffer. Scarlet still within that Nightmare Corridor holding on. Burst damage like no other. It's kind of crazy how fast she can throw down 20 of her bolts and how much damage you can burn down a boss super fast. Iran, again, burst damage. Silas as a buffer and that immunity. And then we are starting to see Goran in here. That's right. We're starting to see Goran within the Treasure Scramble. Also a couple other places that he has started to really pick up. Now, when we get into this A tier, this is where the heroes are starting to come into the substitution realm, or it's coming into really niche formations. So thinking of a few in here like Vika. Vika is still a very unique use, single use case scenario where it is best in slot within the Nightmare Corridor, or it's best in slot within the Cursed Realm, just because of the skills and abilities or the combination of the buffing heroes that are within formations. But overall, these are going to be the heroes probably that you want to drop in your wish list that you're still looking for. And again, these are a lot of the substitution heroes, even thinking of the heroes like Robin Hood out of here. And again, Albedo and Ainz, they are yet to be determined what the buff looks like for them. But you'll also notice that Matria is in here. The Awakened version of Thane is here. He, of course, is best in slot in a niche formation as well. We also do have Mulan in here. Oden is another one that I would like to see awakened. Joan. So a lot of these heroes that are coming and still available in the store, not seeing as much play as we did before. But if you don't have every hero built, and if you don't have every hero built up considerably, still does have quite a bit of utility. Even looking here, Kregor over here, we have Scrag. Hodgkin, again, crowd control and buffer. Damon, still a pretty good carry. Rem is the one that I would advise if you get early. A lot of players were also talking about Merlin. Again, utility-wise, still pretty good, pretty solid overall. Get into the B tier. These are the heroes that are going to be used within towers. Very similar to what we see in the A tier, but when you start breaking these down, these are going to be your substitution heroes. Even right now, there is one formation where the original version of Baden still kind of cheesing the formation, working incredibly well. When you start thinking of like your Mishkas and, Sonya, when you look at Saurus, when you look at Grez, most of these heroes, again, the utility outside of the tower itself, you're not going to see these heroes really used anywhere. Even Mahira, that used to be very prevalent within the campaign, now unfortunately not being used. We used to see the Khazard-Mahira combination to extend the duration of her charm ability, but overall, again, not really used. Even Valkyrie. Valkyrie is used in the Treasure Scramble, and I believe that's it. That's the only place we're seeing her right now. And if you don't have her, pretty easy to replace her with another hero. So the rest of these guys we'll kind of go through again. Ainz, we don't know the fate of Ainz. We don't know exactly the impact of the buffs that we see. But again, these heroes are going to be some of the very, very old heroes. When you think of like Pharrell, when you think of Namora, even Belinda, these are some of the original heroes that we had to AFK Arena, which was going on 6 years ago, which again is kind of crazy. But they've lost their utility. Their combat rating, the power creep has really taken them over. Then, of course, we have this D tier, which is the absolute bottom tier, the Walker tier, down here with the original version of Shamira. And then some of these heroes down here, even thinking of Rigby, looking at, my favorite Almas down here, even looking at Yukio, a couple of these have never really had a utility at all, or the utility was super short-lived. Again, Walker never really seen utility. K-Sauce never seen utility. There were a couple. Joker had utility for a little bit upon release, but a couple months in, again, very short-lived in there. Even thinking of heroes like Gwen was super, super solid with Hendrik when she was released, but that was like 5 years ago when we seen that. So overall, these, again, it could be substitution heroes within the towers themselves, but utility and building them as it sits today, not really there. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. I love the tier list, and this, of course, is the first tier list for 2025. We still have to see where Shell Tier and Ainz and Albedo do come in within this tier list and how and where they do come in. So again, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and as always, thank you guys for watching.